It's Sunday, November 11, 2018. We're doing this for a second time because I decided to look at the two games that were being played. I knew the two games that were being played. I knew them. I knew it was Saskatchewan versus Winnipeg. And we knew 2 weeks ago almost that it was BC versus Hamilton. But I looked at the line, and it's in Saskatchewan, but Winnipeg's favored. So I started digging a little bit deeper. Turns out Caleros is not even going to dress. He was injured last week, and they said he will not dress, so that will put Brandon Bridge in as the starter. To me, Saskatchewan, I get it. Brandon Bridge has some experience in the playoffs, and he's a pretty good player, and he might be the best. He might be the best backup in all of the CFL right now, but he's not Caleros. I get that it's in Saskatchewan, but when you're going up against Winnipeg, you are going up against the highest scoring team in the CFL. Winnipeg is the highest scoring team. If you're going to keep up with Nichols in Winnipeg, you need your best. And the Rough Riders aren't going to have him. They're not going to have Caleros. To me, that's a huge hit because I loved the way Caleros was playing. I love the way the team played with Caleros. And to me, I almost had them picked as a team that could probably win it all. Because they were just playing so well, and but they had to play Caleros in that last game because they were trying to catch Calgary, because they wanted to get that number one seed. So where other people were resting guys like Masoli and I think Lele got rested, and I think even Nichols might have gotten rested because they couldn't go anywhere. They had to keep playing Caleros because they wanted to get him in there. So you see what can happen. I mean, if you're striving for something, you want to get that number one seed. Sometimes you go for it, and sometimes it doesn't pay off. That changes how I would pick this game because I really thought Saskatchewan was going to win this game. The weird part, I'm looking at the stats here, and if you look at the stats, the Winnipeg Blue Bombers have the number one offense, and they have the second rated scoring defense. They've given up 419 points. The only team that's given up less is Calgary at 363. So how is that team only 10-8? How is that team only 10-8? Now I realize they didn't have Nichols for a little part of the season, and their backups aren't as strong. But to me, Winnipeg should be way better than they are. But now without Saskatchewan having Caleros in there, that to me almost doesn't really hand the game. I mean, of course, Saskatchewan's not going to lay down, and Brandon Bridge is a very capable backup, and I think he even won a game or two when Caleros was hurt the first time. But that hurts their chances. To me, I'm going to pick real quick the team that I think is still going to win. The team I still think is going to win the Grey Cup this year. I'm going to go with the Stampeders. Now, I get it. They were 7-0 to start, and they've been 6-5 in their last 11. But I still think that's the best team in the CFL. And once they get a few, maybe, of their wideouts a little healthier, that team might be better. But they also have the best defense. Their defense is incredibly good. Only giving up 3, especially scoring defense. If you can hold your team down, it's like, it's not like Calgary didn't score points. Calgary scored 522 points. They were the second best scoring offense in the CFL. So they had the second best scoring offense and the first best scoring defense. So that's a good team. Even going only 6-5 in their last 11, that's a good team. I still think Calgary is going to take the Grey Cup. Barring any major injuries to any of their really good players. So that'll bring me to today's games. The first game is BC at Hamilton. I think Hamilton's getting 1 point. BC has two of the best defensive backs interception-wise. They each have 5. They have 2 defensive guys that have 11 sacks each. That BC team plays really well. I think they're going to want to take Wally Bueno out on a Bueno. His name's hard for me to pronounce. But I think they're going to want to take him out on a high note. I think this is his last year. I think they're going to play really good. I don't think Hamilton's playing its best football, even though I really like, Masoli. But I don't think they're playing their best football. I really don't. And they're 8-10 in a weak division. I have a hard time thinking that team is going to do much against BC. I know it's in Hamilton, but I think BC has something more to prove. I think they are a slightly better team, and they're playing better football right now. So I'm going to take BC in the upset over Hamilton at home, and BC to move on to the next round. And then we're going to get to Saskatchewan and Winnipeg. I've already touched on a little bit of that stuff. Winnipeg's the pick. I would have taken Saskatchewan if Collaros was healthy, but he's not. And I like Brandon Bridge, I do. But to me, he's a very good backup, but he's not Collaros. And if you're going to score with Winnipeg, you need Collaros. Brandon Bridge is capable. I don't think that Saskatchewan defense, the Saskatchewan defense isn't really that bad either. It's not a bad defense. So I still think, though, that the better team overall without Collaros is going to be Winnipeg. So that moves Winnipeg into the next round to take on, I'm not sure who they take on. But I'll take Winnipeg, and I'll take British Columbia. So the BC Lions and the Winnipeg Blue Bombers to move on to the next round. And then we'll have to see after that. But I think Calgary is still going to win this thing. I think Calgary is still going to get this Grey Cup. They're the best team. I think if they get some of their injuries straightened out, maybe by the time next week rolls around and they play again, Calgary should be strong. Like I said, second best scoring offense, best scoring defense. Winnipeg is going to kind of get a gift here, but I'm not going to sleep on Saskatchewan. I'm not guaranteeing a win for Winnipeg, because Saskatchewan still has a good team, and Brandon Bridge is still a very capable backup. He's proven that he can come in tight spots before and do well. And if Winnipeg was preparing for Collaros, it could mean that they don't have a game plan in place that they've been practicing exclusively against Brandon Bridge. So keep that in mind. A lot of teams don't have a lot of time to dedicate to, if you think Collaros isn't going to play, but you think he might, you have to dedicate some of your game plan on defense to defending against Collaros. So that means that you can spend some time on Bridge and some time on Collaros, but you can't spend all your time on either one. And if you spent all your time on Collaros, that means you have not prepared for Brandon Bridge. And he is a little bit different of a quarterback. I think he's more mobile than Collaros. So, when you don't prepare all week for a guy and now you've all of a sudden got to face him, look for maybe a defense that's not ready for Brandon Bridge because they haven't practiced against him enough, or not game planned for Brandon Bridge as much as they game planned for Collaros. I don't know how they game planned. I don't have that kind of insight into Winnipeg's locker room, so I have no idea who they were really preparing for. But if they had to do a 50-50 split, you didn't get to put all of your eggs into the basket of going up against Brandon Bridge. So I'm still taking Winnipeg in this game because I think that offense is spectacular. I mean, they've shown it by putting up more points than anybody else. So I will definitely take Winnipeg to win that game still, but I will not be surprised if Brandon Bridge has a big game because they've not gotten all the reps against him, the defense for Winnipeg. And of course, I don't care Masoli's going to have one heck of a game to beat the BC Lions. I think BC's playing better football. So that's the first round of the CFL playoffs. Let's get going. And by the way, happy Veterans Day to all of those out there that served. And with all that being said, to the troops, past, present, and future, thanks for the freedom.